Hello everyone, welcome to Dead Time Stories. I know many of you enjoy listening to these videos as you fall asleep, so before you drift off, I'd love for you to leave a comment letting me know where in the world you're tuning in from. And if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Alright, now let's get comfortable, relax, and dive into tonight's story. I used to joke that the scariest thing about my job was the number of expired certificates in the vendor folders. That was before the night I volunteered to audit West Annex during a storm. The building had been decommissioned, that spring mold in the walls. A dead chiller. Lights that worked when they felt like it. It sat at the far edge of campus behind the maintenance yard. A low brick structure with boarded windows and a chain across the front steps. We were closing out a pest control contract, and facilities needed someone to verify the last 3 months of service. It should have been simple. Take photos of the logbook. Match dates to invoices. Make sure the bait stations were labeled. Everyone else had real deadlines. I had a raincoat and a stubborn streak. Don't stay long, Miguel from facilities said as he handed me the faded brass key. The building hums at night. Because the air handler's angry at you, I said. He didn't laugh. Because somebody keeps leaving lights on that aren't on timers. I told him I'd be in and out. The rain was already sheet thick, pooling over the storm drains, blowing sideways. I parked by the curb cut, pulled up my hood, and jogged to the door that said service in peeling white letters. The key turned with a sound like a small bone breaking. Cold air pressed out, smelling like wet paper and pesticide. Inside, my flashlight followed the silver of caution tape over a hallway where the ceiling tiles were missing. The storm made a constant hush, as if the rain itself had poured into the ductwork. My footsteps echoed, somewhere. Water dripped into a metal bucket with a ping that rang and rang. I found the facilities office by memory, the little room by the loading dock with a window that looked into nothing. The pest control logbook was on the counter. Beneath a paperweight shaped like a fish, I set my phone to record, flipped the cover, and started photographing pages. Each sheet was ruled with columns date, technician initials. Stations checked. Notes, June, July, August. The first oddity was small, the same ballpoint indentation on 3 different dates. The second was bigger, a signature from J. Delgado in a hand that matched K. Cruz 3 pages earlier. I frowned, flipping back and forth, tracing loops and slants with my finger. I don't do forgery for a living, but I do recognize patterns. In procurement, patterns are how you keep mistakes from growing legs. A gust banged a door somewhere down the hall. I looked up, held still, listened to the building breathe. You're fine. I told myself out loud. The words sounded too loud. I took more photos. August 12th, 26 stations checked. Heavy activity in Annex B, August 19th. Follow-up. Reduced activity. Then, September 20th, the day after the last big rain. Sealed gaps along north wall, no charge. The page looked smudged, like it had been photocopied and refilled. My phone buzzed with a text from Miguel. You good? Fine. I typed, just slow. I picked up the fish paperweight to snap the last page. Under it, someone had tucked a Polaroid, one of those instant photos with the white border. It showed the same counter I was standing at. Same fish. Same logbook, but the timestamp in the corner read 2:14 a.m. The photo was framed from the doorway, as if someone had stood where I was now and aimed the camera in. My thumb slipped on the phone screen. I could feel my heartbeat in the band of my watch. Okay, I whispered. Okay. I put the photo back exactly where I'd found it and stepped into the hall to leave. The motion sensor for the emergency lights clicked, hummed, and gave me a dull glow. On the scuffed tile, a footprint shone damply, not mine, smaller, bare. The building hummed. The rain hissed. I felt, suddenly and completely, like a person who had walked into a room that was already occupied. I told myself the footprint was old. The air here was damp. Maybe condensation had pooled and made the shape. I hovered the beam of my flashlight over it. The toes were distinct. The arch had a slight inward lean. A thread of dirt had smeared at the heel. Old did not look that precise. The service corridor runs like a spine through the annex, connecting the dock to the classrooms and labs. I started toward the exit, slower now, sweeping my light in a steady rhythm. On the left, a custodial closet yawning open. The chemical bottles gone except for a cloudy jug of floor sealer. On the right, a student lounge with chairs stacked on their sides like a barricade. I stepped past a dark bulletin board where water had blistered the paper behind the glass. The rain hit the roof hard enough to shiver dust from a missing tile. At the first intersection, I paused. Another footprint. This one overlapped a track of gray mop streaks, and further on, by the stairwell door, a damp handprint at knee height. Fingersplit. The center a little lighter where the palm hadn't pressed fully. I considered calling campus police, then pictured the conversation. You found a footprint in a closed building. They'd come. But they'd come slow. I texted Miguel instead. Looks like someone's been inside here. Small. Maybe a kid? He called me immediately. You're not alone? Probably just old. It's pouring. No one should be in there. You want me to send someone? I heard myself say, let me check the Annex B stations and then I'll leave. If the door's been jimmied, I'll call CP. He was quiet. Keep your phone on speaker, he said. And if you hear singing or a radio, get out. What? We've had reports. Just don't argue. Be quick. I slid the phone into my jacket pocket. Speaker up. The call live. The stairwell door was heavy and stiff. It dragged across swollen floor paint. The first step down was slick with condensation. I tested the railing. My beam fell into a deeper dark that smelled like copper pipes and dust. The basement wasn't a proper basement, just a partial level where shipping pallets used to sit, where the pest company kept their bait station inventory in a locked cage. At the bottom, a faint green exit sign smoldered above a concrete hallway. When I moved, something rustled ahead. A dry hush like plastic brushing cinder block. Hello, I called. I heard my voice bounce. Reach corners. Return thinner. Something scraped. A light winked. Faint and then steady. From beneath a door that had once been painted brown, on the peeling surface, someone had scrawled in a fat marker, "Keep out trenching." The lock was missing. The knob turned under my hand with an easy, traitorously friendly click. Inside. The room was warmer. A desk lamp without a shade sat on the floor, aimed at an upturned crate that served as a table. On the crate, a pack of saltine crackers, a jar of peanut butter with a spoon in it, a stack of printed forms, a pair of scissors, a glue stick, and a ruler. In the corner, a nest of blankets on flattened cardboard. On the wall above that, a corkboard with neatly pinned copies of certificates of insurance. I stepped closer. The COIs were ours, our vendors, our dates, but the fonts weren't quite right. One had a December expiration with a June signature. The agent's email was missing a letter. The phone number on another had one too many digits. My stomach dropped as if I had misstepped on a stair I knew by heart. Miguel, I said, trying to keep my voice even. Someone's faking COIs in the annex. There's a whole setup. His voice crackled. Where exactly? Basement. Room marked trenching. There's a bed. Food, he's been here for a while. Miguel swore softly. On my way. I'm calling CP. A soft thud sounded in the hall outside, like something gentle set on the floor. I turned off the lamp instinctively, and in the sudden dim, the room shrank into outlines. Crate. Wall. Corkboard ghosts. My flashlight shaft hit the knob just as it moved, just as the door pressed inward an inch and then stopped, as if the person on the other side were remembering to be careful. Hey, a voice said, low and level. You left the light on. My throat closed. I tightened my grip on the light until my fingers hurt. I'm with the college, I said, and because it sounded thin, I added, I've called campus police. A small silence. The door edged open another inch. In the hallway. The green glow tinted the air. You don't have to do that, the voice said. I'm not here to hurt you. It was a man's voice. Older than a student. Younger than the maintenance staff. Even, practiced, the kind of tone you use with frightened animals. Mine. I'll step back, he said. You can walk out. I heard the scuff of a shoe on concrete. A mechanical jingle keys. You're going to want to take your photos, right? You love your photos. The hair on my arms lifted. He knew what I was doing. He knew me. Or people like me. Well enough to know the compulsion. Document. Verify. Reconcile. I thought of the Polaroid in the logbook. The timestamp at 2:14 a.m. A ritual made of observation. You've been living here, I said. To keep him talking. To keep my voice from breaking. Only when it rains, he said. Something in his steadiness made me braver. I switched my phone from Miguel to CP with a thumb I hoped didn't shake and pressed the emergency contact that routes to dispatch. It rang. The man's head turned toward the tiny sound like a deer hearing a twig. This is campus police. A woman's voice came through. What is your emergency? I spoke as clearly as I could. My name. West Annex. Basement room. Intruder present. The man sighed disappointed. Almost parental. You shouldn't have done that, he said. Stay where you are, I said, and hated the way it came out bureaucratic. Brittle. He laughed. A small gust of air without humor. You think I don't know where the blind spots are? I could sit next to you and not be on camera. In the light, his hand appeared around the edge of the door. Palm up. Empty. The skin looked clean. The nails neatly clipped. Then the rest of him. A blue maintenance shirt without a name patch. Jeans. Work boots damp at the toes. He was compact. Compact like someone who could pass through a crowd without snagging. His hair was clipped close. His eyes were ordinary. That's what made me cold how completely forgettable he looked. You found my office, he said, nodding at the crate. The corkboard. You of all people should respect a workspace. I respect the law, I said. It sounded foolish. He smiled without teeth. Let me guess, he said. You started in accounts, moved to procurement, discovered a talent for seeing what's missing. My mouth went dry. Get out of the doorway. He did. Stepping back into the hall, raising his hands, he glanced down the corridor, left and right, and then back at me, still, like he was measuring a distance in his head. You don't have to say anything to them, he said, and the them had the weight of a word he despised. Walk out. We both go home. Tomorrow you'll think this was a dream. Tomorrow I'll still have photos, I said. He shrugged. Then I guess we're going to do this the wet way. He reached behind him, and something clanked. A valve turning no. A pipe wrench hitting metal. The sprinklers overhead coughed once. Twice. And then the room detonated in cold rain. The drop from lamp warm to sprinkler cold took my breath. Water hammered my scalp. Drummed the crate. Smeared the ink on the printed COIs into comet tails. My flashlight blew a halo in the spray. The man moved. I saw the blur of him through water past the door, down the hall toward the riser valve. He had triggered the test lever to drown the cameras and the evidence and me. I lunged for the corkboard. The top row of pins was already loosening in the torrent, paper wrinkling, edges letting go. I yanked the whole board down and hugged it to my chest. Turned, and felt my foot skid on the flooded concrete. I caught myself against the doorframe with my shoulder. Pain shot down my arm. Leave that. He called over the roar. He wasn't running. He thought he had time. Some rational part of me took inventory. Water. Sound. Wait. I shoved the corkboard under my jacket like a ridiculous shield and stepped into the hall. Beam low to catch his legs. The riser valve assembly was bolted to the wall halfway down. A red wheel-handled valve and a chain with a tag. He stood beside it. Rain flattening his hair. A wrench in one hand, and that careful smile back on his face. Don't. I said, please. You already did. He said, tilting his chin toward my pocket where the dispatch line hissed with static. This buys me a minute. He twisted the wrench. The rain doubled. Then somehow tripled, turning the hallway into a white curtain. I couldn't see his shoes. Fine. I thought, and dropped to my knees, letting the water take me. My hand found the cold pipe and slid along it, the test drain. I knew enough from office safety trainings, somewhere. There was a main shutoff, or at least a bypass, and somewhere else, an alarm switch. I followed the pipe in the other direction and hit a box. My fingers slid over a lever inside. I pulled. An alarm howled a banshee note that swallowed the rain, and my fear in one shriek. The man flinched. I surged to my feet and ran. He was fast. His hand caught my elbow. I twisted. The corkboard between us. My shoulder screaming. Hey, he said. Suddenly gentle again. Hey, don't touch me. He let go. The alarm carved the air into jagged pieces. The green exit sign at the end of the hall flickered. Steadied. I moved toward it, and he did not follow. That scared me more than if he had. He was thinking. He was considering new angles. Take the door by the dock, he said conversationally through the rain. The front is chained. Remember? He knew my path better than I did. He wanted me to move where he wanted me. I veered left instead. Up the slick stairwell wearily painted avocado decades ago. My shoes squeaked. The corkboard thumped my ribs. On the landing, a window without glass admitted the storm like a live thing. The cold made my teeth chatter. At the top, the service door dragged again across the paint. On the far side, the corridor light strobed madness white from the alarm. The fish paperweight. In my memory, anchored a page still. The Polaroid under it saw everything. I fought the urge to run for the office. Instead, I headed for the loading dock. The door to the dock was propped with a broom. Outside, rain hammered the asphalt into smoke. The security gate that should have been rolled down was halfway, jagged, like someone had forced it up with a jack. I slid under on my side, scraping my hip, and landed on my palms in a puddle that was more lake than anything else. Lanterns were bobbing in the dark too, then 3 campus police and Miguel. Relief hit so hard, my knees wobbled. "Ma'am," an officer yelled, hands where I can see them. I held them up. Corkboard pressed to my stomach like a life vest. Water pouring off the brim of my hood. "There's a man inside," I said. Teeth clicking. "Basement." They rushed past me. Miguel stopped. Eyes scanning my face and then the board under my jacket. "You okay?" I set off the alarm. I said. And then, because it felt important, he turns on the sprinklers to wash everything. Miguel's jaw tightened. "Stay here." He did not need to tell me twice. I backed against the loading ramp and slid down it, my spine finding the cold concrete edge. My hands shook so hard the pushpins rattled against the cork like hail. I tucked the board under my legs and wrapped my arms over my head, listening to the rain and the alarm until the alarm cut and only the rain remained. They found no one. They searched the basement, the service corridors, the crawl space above the main hallway where the ducks hulked like sleeping whales. They came back, water slick and irritable. Radios crackling with status codes that meant all clear and nothing found. The sprinkler test lever had been reset. The riser valve hung innocently in its chain. "There's a setup in a room marked trenching," I said hoarsely. "Forms. Shivers. Glue COIs." An officer with a square jaw and a pad of Write in the Rain paper nodded toward the corkboard I was guarding. "That it?" "Part of it," I said. "The rest might be mush by now." Miguel crouched beside me, his wet hair pasted to his forehead. Who was he? Mid-30s, 40s, I said. My voice tried to be clinical and failed. Maintenance shirt without a name patch. Keys. He knew our process. He knew me. Or the type of me. The officer jotted fast. "He touch you?" Grabbed my elbow. Let go when I told him to. "Any weapon?" "A wrench," I said, "but he used it on the pipes." "Of course, he did," Miguel muttered. They took my statement in the glow of the cruiser headlights, rain slanting like static across the notepad. When I described the Polaroid in the logbook, the officer climbed back inside with a second flashlight and returned a minute later holding a Ziploc with the photo sealed in it. His mouth a thin line. "We'll bag all this," he said, nodding to my board. "You can send the digital photos to records." "I should have left when I saw the footprint," I said. Miguel looked at me like I had said something rude. "You found a felony," he said. "We hire people to run toward that. You're not one of them. Don't do that again." "I won't." "I promised." "And meant it the way you mean you'll stop eating sugar." They locked the annex gate with 2 fat locks and a second chain. They posted tape along the dock and a sign that said, "Do not enter evidence." They put me in Miguel's truck with the heater on high and a blanket that smelled faintly of bleach. My phone pinged with missed calls. And then with a text from an unknown number. 2:14 a.m. I stared at it until the letters bled. I didn't show it to anyone. At home, I washed my hair twice and still smelled the building. I checked the locks on my doors twice. Then a third time that made me feel foolish and safe. I put the blanket from Miguel over my legs and closed my eyes, as if rest could be negotiated like a contract. In the morning, my inbox was a thicket campus police. Legal. My supervisor. A risk manager I had never met. I sent the photos. I wrote a statement with the dry voice of my job. I did not say that he had sounded reasonable, that he had been so convincingly ordinary I could imagine him in line at the coffee cart. Nowhere special. The investigation bloomed. We learned things. The camera logs showed a figure slipping through the gap in the security gate the night before I was there. Face turned away. Posture neutral. A former night contractor. Let go quietly after a disagreement. The name matched an entry on a vendor sign-in sheet from months back. Items in our files had been moved. Not many, but enough COIs scanned and swapped. A phone number altered. An email nudged one letter to the left, almost elegant. If fraud could be elegant. I tried to define the feeling that stuck with me after everything was properly logged, that somewhere very near the building a man had watched the cruiser lights churn rain into glitter and considered what he would do next. The feeling followed me into the grocery store, where I scanned faces and found too many men who could have been him. Men built to disappear. Få later. A manila envelope appeared in my campus mailbox. No return address. Inside, a single Polaroid. It showed the loading dock. The rain. A woman sliding under a half-open gate. A corkboard clutched to her chest. The timestamp in the corner read 2:17 a.m. He had been outside. He had been in the rain. And he had watched me leave. I sat with the photo on my desk blotter, the fluorescent light striping it like prison bars. The white border had a thumbprint in the lower corner, a crescent of clean where rain hadn't reached. I sealed it in an interoffice envelope for records, wrote the date in my neat procurement hand, and then, very deliberately, wrote a second envelope to myself and put nothing in it. I wanted to see if it would arrive empty. I wanted to know where the leak began. Miguel came by before lunch. Hair still damp from the drizzle that never quite left our town in September. He didn't touch the photo. Just leaned over it with his hands on his knees. He's escalating, he said. He wants me to know he's outside the frame, I said. Miguel's mouth twisted. He wants you to flinch. I did. I admitted. In my car, twice at a green light because I thought someone was in the back seat. He straightened. We'll get you an escort for a while. I don't want to burn favors, I said, reflexively calculating politics. Just a different parking spot. He looked at me long enough that I felt seen and a little ashamed. I'll move you up by the library, he said, and I'm changing the mailbox pickup route. If he's been fishing, he won't like the nets moving. Campus police swept my office that afternoon with a wand that sniffed for GPS bugs and found only dust and a paperclip. They asked for the envelope the photo came in. I'd already recycled it. We all did the disappointed little shrug you do when the easy lesson comes late. Work wobbled, but didn't stop. Invoices wanted matching. A vendor's workers' comp expired on the 30th, and their general liability on the 15th. The AC cord certificate listed both, but the earliest expiration governs, and someone had ignored that. I sent a polite note with highlights and dates. My fingers remembered how to be useful. At 3:11 p.m. The unknown number texted again. The earliest date controls. Good catch. I felt the floor tilt under my chair. I raised the phone to show Miguel, then didn't. I changed the number's name in my contacts to Do Not Engage and set it to silent. I still typed back before I could stop myself. Who are you? The 3 dots came and went, like breath on a cold day. Then, you know me. You wrote me up. I scrolled back through old approvals in my head, through night contractors and temporary hires, through names I touched only long enough to route signatures. The man in the basement had worn the blankness of someone who lived between systems. That was the problem. Men like that fit 100 names. That night, I left at dusk with my tote crossed over my body and my keys between my fingers like fake claws. The library lot was bright, the lamps haloed with gnats. A silver SUV idled 2 aisles over. My heart sped. Then a student in a hoodie popped up from the passenger side with a late-night burrito. I laughed. Too loud. At my jump. At home. I pulled the blanket over my knees and opened the photos from the annex on my laptop. I zoomed in on the corkboard I'd rescued before the sprinklers melted the ink. The forgeries were clean. unnervingly so consistent typefaces, margins that lined up. But in the lower left of each, where the producer information lived, the phone numbers had a pattern, always a 7, always a 9, as if a hand had a favorite rhythm. In one, the policy number was palindromic in a way no insurer would permit. I made a list. I cross-checked against our contracts. I found 2 more files in active use with the same quiet deformities. When I emailed the risk manager, I was careful. I may have identified additional compromised COIs. I wrote, "See attached examples, note producer phone anomalies and policy number formats. Suggest we request fresh certificates directly from carriers." Her reply came within 10 minutes. "Good catches. We'll pull the thread." At 11:04 p.m. you pull. I nod. The unknown number wrote. I turned the phone face down and sat with my hands open in my lap like someone about to receive communion. Somewhere outside, a sprinkler head ticked as it cooled. The neighbor's irrigation had run. I pictured valves and risers and red-painted wheels, and a man learning the exoskeleton of our buildings like a second language. The next morning, there was a small cardboard box on my chair, no label. Inside, a single pushpin red, with a pearl top. Under it, a folded note on graph paper. "You took mine." I carried the pin to Miguel in my palm like something that could bite. He looked at the tiny dot of metal and swore softly in Spanish that made my throat burn with gratitude. "He was in your office," he said. "Or he asked someone to drop it off," I said, grasping at hope. Miguel shook his head. "Janitorial says no, they're on alert." We checked the door logs. They showed nothing between 6 p.m. and 7 a.m. Either he had a magic badge, or he had learned the old magician's trick: follow a legitimate user so closely the system counts bodies as one. I saw myself coming in with an armful of binders, nodding automatically at someone behind me, not seeing. My stomach turned. "Okay," Miguel said, rubbing his eyes. "We change human habits since he's mastered the hardware. New entrance protocols, escorts at random, and..." He nudged the pushpin toward me. "We make him feel watched." "How?" I asked. Miguel's smile was thin and real. "We feed him bait he thinks he found." I didn't like being the worm. I liked less the idea of doing nothing while the line tugged. "What bait?" "The only thing he values," Miguel said. "Paper that proves he's smarter than us." The plan we drafted felt like a second job layered over the first. Risk management loved the idea too much, maybe, and called it controlled exposure. We called it what it was, a trap stitched from letterhead and toner. We built a fake certificate, all the numbers plausible at first glance, but wrong in ways a real vendor would never allow. The producer's phone ended with 5,555. The policy number was too short. The expiration date was February 30th. We pinned it to a corkboard, left it on my desk like bait on a hook, then photographed it from enough angles to show later that it had been untouched at the start. Miguel insisted we mark it with a hairline of ultraviolet ink only visible under a black light, so we know which hands touched it, he said, his jaw tight. "He wants to play games? Fine. He doesn't get to keep the pieces." I felt sick the morning we set it out. I spent the day typing purchase orders with the bait paper an arm's length away, pretending to forget it. Every printer sound down the hall made me jump. By 5. My neck ached from pretending not to watch the door. Campus police had eyes on the hallway camera feeds. But as always, hardware had limits, pixelation, blind corners, the way motion sensors caught gnats as eagerly as men. My own phone buzzed at 2:14 p.m. sharp. Though, a text from the unknown number. It read, "Clever." I shoved the phone under a folder like it might burn. He knew. He always knew. but that meant he was watching in real time. Didn't it? Not later. Not at leisure. But right then, at 5:37, Miguel appeared in my doorway, rain spattering his jacket. He didn't speak, just tilted his head. I followed him 2 floors down to the little security room where banks of monitors hummed. One screen showed my office in grainy gray, the corkboard on my desk, empty doorway. "Watch," Miguel said. On the feed, the hallway lights flickered a power blink so small my office lamp barely dipped. In the dark smear, a figure slipped through the frame, compact, hooded, posture perfectly neutral. He didn't hesitate, he walked straight in, lifted the corkboard, studied the fake COI under it. A small pause, then he tucked it under his arm, pivoted, and was gone. All in less than 15 seconds. The ultraviolet ink streaks lit faintly against his sleeve as he turned, proof. My chest went hollow. He's going to know we staged it. Miguel shook his head. He's addicted. He can't resist showing you he knows. The proof came before I left the building, a Polaroid in my mailbox. Still tacky with developer. It showed me in the security room, watching the feed. Timestamp, 17:39. I pressed it flat on the counter with both hands so I wouldn't drop it. He's inside our cameras, I whispered. Or beside them, Miguel said. His eyes never left the photo. That night, I dreamed of sprinklers, not water, but paper reams shredding into a rain of falsified documents. Thousands of near copies smearing the floor. In the dream, the man bent down and picked one up, held it out to me with a calm smile, and said, "Earliest expiration governs." I woke to my phone buzzing. 2:14 a.m. again. This time, a photo message. I braced for an image of me in bed, but no, it was the bait certificate. Pinned again to my own office corkboard. Neat, as if it had never been touched. My locks were intact, my windows latched. My badge showed no after-hours use. And yet the paper was waiting when I arrived in the morning, exactly where the photo had promised. He wanted me to know he could reset the board. Miguel studied it under blacklight and swore. The ultraviolet smudge was gone. Erased somehow without leaving damage. He's not just forging paper anymore, Miguel said. He's forging the scene. The thought slithered in before I could stop it. Maybe he'd been in my office when I was quiet. In a corner my eyes skipped over. Maybe he was ordinary enough to sit in a chair while I typed, so unremarkable I hadn't seen him at all. I pushed the corkboard away like it was diseased. This isn't about documents anymore. Miguel met my eyes. No, now it's about you. I wanted to believe Miguel was wrong, that this was still about contracts and leverage, about someone bitter enough to rot a system for spite. But when I unlocked my car that evening, a paper slid off the seat to the floor mat. Not just any paper, my own grocery list. The one I had left face down on the kitchen counter. Milk, spinach, apples, printer ink, same sloppy pen loops, same corner stain from a wet mug. I sat there with the door open, rain dripping off my hood, staring at my handwriting like it belonged to a stranger. My phone buzzed once. The same unknown number. You forgot, printer ink. I dropped the list on the passenger seat and drove. Too fast. Too sharp around corners. All the while checking the rear view until the mirror was only a blur of lights. At home, I unplugged the router, powered off my phone, and locked the deadbolt. But it didn't stop the feeling that my house had already been opened and cataloged. That night, I didn't sleep. Every creak was him. Every car passing outside was headlights angling up my drive. I tried to tell myself, he feeds on your fear. Don't give him calories. But fear doesn't care about reason. Fear gnaws whether you want it to or not. By morning, I had made a decision. Not campus security. Not risk managers with polite emails I needed law. I took the Polaroids, the grocery list, the text logs, and walked into the downtown police station with a folder under my arm like an overeager student turning in an essay. The desk sergeant flipped through. "Slow. He's not making threats," she said finally. "This is harassment." "Yes, but..." She let the words trail. "But what?" I demanded. "But without violence. It's paper and pictures, which a good lawyer will say could come from anywhere." I thought of the way his hand had closed around my elbow in the annex basement. How deliberate it had been. Not a snatch. Not a shove. Just enough to prove he could. "He's escalating," I said, hating how weak my voice sounded. "You'll wait until it's not paper anymore?" The sergeant didn't answer. She handed the folder back. On the walk to my car, I called Miguel, fury boiling my throat raw. He didn't say "I told you so." He just said. Then we stopped waiting. That night, he brought me into the facility's shop, concrete floors, racks of filters and paint, the smell of oil, and showed me what he called a shadow badge, an old prox card, gutted and rewired to a dummy circuit. "If he tails you," Miguel said, "this won't open the door. It'll flag the system and lock it down. We'll know who followed." "You want me to bait him again?" I said. "I want him where we can see him." Miguel replied, "You're the only thing he can't resist." The thought sat heavy in my stomach. I didn't want to be irresistible. I wanted to be invisible. But the truth was already clawing at me. He wasn't watching the campus anymore. He was watching me. So I agreed. The next evening, I swiped the shadow badge at the North Annex entry, the one with a camera directly above. The red light blinked. I pretended frustration, jiggled the handle, then walked away slow enough for someone behind me to think I was careless. Later, Miguel texted one word: "Got him." In the footage, you could see it clear, the hooded man stepping into frame, just a shade too close, reaching for the handle right after me. When the red light stayed red, he stilled, then melted back into the shadows. Proof. Finally, a face half turned to the camera, pale cheek, a notch of scar by his jawline, enough for an ID. But when they ran it through HR archives and contractor databases, nothing matched. Not Delgado, not Cruz, not any of the names in the logbook. It was as if he had been scrubbed. And then the next morning, a Polaroid on my desk showed me swiping the shadow badge. Timestamp 2:14 a.m. Beneath it, in neat block letters, "Nice try." The Polaroid sat on my desk like a dare. The timestamp glared at me. 2:14 a.m., always the same. I turned it over half, expecting some hidden message. But the back was blank except for the chemical sheen of the film. My fingers left faint damp marks from my coffee cup. Miguel closed my door with a click when he saw it. He didn't even sit down. He's laughing at us now. He knew about the shadow badge, I said. He was waiting. Miguel rubbed the bridge of his nose. "We thought he was feeding off access. He's feeding off you. I'm not giving him anything." I snapped. Too loud. The paper in my hand trembled. "Betraying me." Miguel's look was steady. "You already are, just by existing in his story." The words landed like a stone in my chest, because I felt it too that the man wasn't just stalking me. He was writing me in, a character in a play he staged with Polaroids and silence, and I was reading every line he fed me. That evening, I drove home by 3 different routes, circling through neighborhoods I didn't know, trying to shake off the sensation of a car shadowing me 2 lengths back. Each time I checked, the road was empty, but the itch between my shoulders never left. I stopped at a gas station off the highway. Inside, under humming fluorescence, I bought gum and pretended to study the candy racks just to stand where the cameras could see me. The cashier gave me a tired smile, the kind that said long night shift. Stranger paranoia is nothing new here. When I came back out, a single Polaroid rested under my wiper blade, rain stippling its glossy surface. It showed me inside the gas station, bent over the candy rack, timestamp 2:14 a.m. I stood frozen in the drizzle, the gum pack slick in my hand. The photo was warm, like it had only just been shaken dry. Someone had been close enough to snap, develop, and slide it under my wiper while I counted quarters at the counter. I drove home with every muscle locked, the photo on the passenger seat face down like a corpse. Inside, I locked the deadbolt, then slid a chair under the knob like I was 12 again and home alone. I checked every closet, every room, empty. But when I reached my desk, my laptop screen was on. I hadn't touched it. And there, centered in a blank document, one line blinked in bold black type. Earliest expiration governs. No Polaroid this time, just words that might as well have been carved into the walls. I yanked the power cord, slammed the lid shut, and sat with my back against the far wall, the hum of my blood louder than the rain outside. At 2:14 a.m. exactly, my phone powered off. I swear buzzed once on the desk. The screen lit itself without permission. A new message. Look behind you. Look. I didn't turn. Couldn't. My breath lodged sharp in my ribs. The phone screen glowed across the room like a single unblinking eye. Look behind you. The chair wedged under the door handle pressed into my back. I listened for footsteps, for breath that wasn't mine. Nothing, just the soft hiss of rain on the window and the hum of my refrigerator 3 rooms away. Finally, I forced myself up, legs like wet rope. I gripped the flashlight I kept by the desk and spun fast, beam slicing the room. Empty. Walls. Shelves. The door, nothing but the ordinary clutter of my life. A plant with browning leaves. A stack of unopened envelopes. The chair braced under the knob. Unmoved. I whispered, "You're not here." But the words felt borrowed. When I picked up the phone, the message had vanished. No new thread, no notification. The log showed the last text as "nice try." My thumb trembled as I scrolled, but the words weren't there. I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch with the flashlight across my lap, waiting for dawn to thin the dark. At work the next morning, I must have looked hollow. Miguel studied me from his office doorway, arms crossed. What happened? I told him. Not everything. I didn't admit the part where I nearly believed someone had been breathing at my shoulder, but enough. The text, the laptop. His jaw clenched. He's in your network. That's how he's inside your house without stepping foot in it. It felt like more than that. I said quietly, like he knew what I was thinking. Miguel didn't argue. He just rubbed his temples. Then we widened the circle. It. Legal. External security. If he's planted something in your devices, we'll find it. But IT found nothing. No malware. No remote access. Logs clean. Laptop ordinary. Phone ordinary. Still, that night when I powered everything off, the laptop booted itself back on. Screen blue-white in the dark. Cursor blinking. And this time, the words appeared slower. Deliberate. as though he were typing in the room with me. I can wait forever, can you? The next days blurred into a rhythm of dread. Normal work in the daylight purchase orders, certificates, the endless combing through dates and signatures, and then nights filled with the knowledge that he owned 14 a.m. The way some people owned keys. Sometimes it was a photo on my desk, sometimes a text that vanished. Once, the faint sound of water trickling through the pipes at exactly 2:14, though the sprinklers were off. The worst was Thursday. I woke not to my alarm, but to silence so thick I thought I'd gone deaf. The house was dark. Power out. My phone screen glowed without being touched, casting a weak square of light on the floor. A Polaroid lay there, fresh, still curled at the edges. It showed me asleep in my own bed. Timestamp, samdom 1:04 am. The camera angle was from the corner of the room high. Impossible. As if the wall itself had been watching. I pressed the photo to my chest, heart slamming so hard it made the paper crinkle, and in that moment, one thought burned through the terror like a brand. He doesn't need to break in anymore. He's already inside. I ripped the sheets off my bed, searching the walls, the ceiling, anywhere a lens could hide. My fingers traced baseboards, pried at outlets, clawed behind the smoke detector until the plastic cracked. Nothing. By dawn, the power blinked back, lights humming alive one by one. Too bright after hours of dark, I sat on the floor. The Polaroid crumpled in my hand, and called Miguel. He didn't waste time with greetings. What now? He's in the house, I whispered. Camera. Something. I don't know where. I woke up and there was a picture of me sleeping. Stay put. Don't touch anything else. I'm bringing a sweep team. Benineo. Mo. 3 techs in facilities polos combed every inch of my home. They checked vents, trough spates, even the hollow under the porch. They found nothing. No cameras, no wires, no signal leaks. When they left, Miguel lingered at the door, rain dripping from his jacket. He's not using hardware, he said finally. He's using you. What does that even mean? Miguel's eyes were dark. It means he knows your habits so well. He doesn't need a camera. He can guess where you'll be, how you'll move, when you'll sleep. He lives in the rhythm of you. The words made my skin crawl worse than hidden cameras would have. Because he was right, I was predictable. Up at 6. Coffee by 7. Bed by midnight. Grocery list on the counter. Bad habit of leaving lights on. He'd mapped me like a building plan. That night, I resolved to break the rhythm. I left every light on, slept on the couch instead of my bed, moved the furniture 2 feet off its grooves. And yet, at 2:14 a.m., my phone buzzed where I'd hidden it under a pile of clothes. A text appeared. Couch doesn't suit you. I dragged myself into work the next day, gray-eyed and brittle. I tried to bury myself in tasks, but everything I touched frayed. In one certificate, the insurer's address was missing a digit. In another, the expiration month was written as 13. They weren't just errors, they were deliberate echoes of his rhythm, seated in real documents now. At noon, risk management called an emergency meeting. The risk manager, a pinched woman with sharp glasses, laid out copies of COIs across the conference table. These aren't accidents, she said. Someone is manipulating the chain. My stomach dropped as I scanned the papers. The little irregularities were his fingerprint. He was inside the system again. Could be a contractor with leftover access, someone suggested. No, I said, the word tearing out. It's one person, He doesn't just forge, he mimics. He's trying to talk to us through the errors. The room went quiet. They all stared at me like I was confessing a private sin. Miguel finally broke it. She's right. This is a language, and he's fluent. That night, I tried again to outsmart him. I left the house entirely. Slept in a budget motel 3 towns over. The room smelled of bleach and old smoke. But the lock was heavy and the curtains thick. I woke at 2:14 a.m. anyway, heart hammering. On the nightstand, where I'd left nothing, a Polaroid waited. It showed me lying in that exact bed, curtains drawn behind me. Dimestamp von vo o m. Beneath the photo, in handwriting I recognized too well. 3 words. Home is better. You're the document. I read the words until my vision tunneled. My hands shook so badly, I nearly tore the photo in 2. He wasn't interested in contracts, or COIs, or systems anymore. He wanted me filed, indexed, forged into his creation. I shoved the Polaroid into an envelope and drove it straight to Miguel. He studied it without touching. Jaw hardening. This isn't proof anymore. He said, this is obsession. I don't care what you call it. I snapped. I want it to stop. He gave a short nod. Then we escalate. Full surveillance. 24-hour watch. No shadows this time. It sounded good on paper, but that night when I went home, 2 officers parked across the street in an unmarked sedan. Windows fogging in the drizzle. I locked every door, every window. Still, when 2:14 a.m. came, I woke to the sound of paper sliding under my bedroom door. I froze, heart clanging, then reached for the flashlight. A single sheet lay on the floor, typed, not handwritten, my own procurement format, margins exact, but blank except for one field. Expiration date, 2/14. I flung the door open. Empty hallway. Officers outside in the car. Oblivious. I stormed down barefoot and yanked open the front door. Did you see anyone? I demanded, waving the sheet. They blinked, startled. Nobody's gone in or out. Then how? My throat closed around the rest. If he could slip paper into my locked bedroom while 2 trained officers watched, then walls and locks were nothing. By morning, exhaustion had hollowed me out. I shuffled through work like a ghost. Signing off on invoices I barely read. My inbox swelled with reminders, meetings, deadlines, normal life pressing forward as if I wasn't unraveling. And then, in the middle of it, an email appeared. No sender, no subject, just a single attachment, a scanned certificate of insurance. I almost deleted it, but curiosity hooked me. I opened it and stared. The insured's name field didn't list a vendor. It listed mine, my full name, address, birth date, every detail correct, coverage, comprehensive, effective until termination, expiration, 2/14. I slammed the laptop shut so hard the hinge cracked. Miguel came when I called, silent as I shoved the laptop into his hands. He read the file, face tightening with every line. He's not just following you, Miguel said finally. He's insuring you, writing his own policy. On what? I demanded. My life? My time? Miguel's eyes were grim. On ownership. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room with the lights blazing. Documents scattered across the coffee table. Real COIs. Fake ones. Polaroids. His rhythm threaded through all of it too, 14 like a signature. Arrows like fingerprints. And when the clock struck 2:14 a.m., I heard the sprinklers hiss to life outside. Water hammered the windows, steady and suffocating. I rushed to the back door, yanked it open. The yard was empty, just rain arcing from the nozzles, but on the patio table, weighted by a red pushpin, lay another Polaroid. This one was darker, grainy. It showed me exactly as I stood now, door open, rain splattering my face, flashlight clutched in hand. Timestamp 0.6 AM, and beneath, in bold block letters, file closed. The words hit like a verdict, final, cold. I staggered back inside, slamming the door so hard the glass rattled. The sprinklers hissed on, and on, until the whole yard steamed. I pressed my back against the wall, clutching the Polaroid, too afraid to put it down and more afraid to keep holding it. File closed. Did that mean he was finished with me, or that he was about to finish me? At 2:16, the sprinklers cut off. Silence bloomed, heavy and absolute. I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room chair, Polaroid flat on the table, flashlight in my lap, waiting for some other sign. None came, only silence. By dawn, I drove straight to Miguel's office, eyes red, hands trembling. He studied the photo for a long time. Face unreadable. File closed doesn't sound like an ending. He said finally, "It sounds like classification. You think he's moved on?" Miguel shook his head. "I think he's archived you. You're not the story anymore. You're a record, cataloged." Something in me cracked at that. Relief because maybe he was done. Terror because archives don't walk away. They just sit, waiting to be pulled again. The next week passed in a haze of normal. No Polaroids, no texts, no 14 interruptions. I worked. I signed invoices. I sat in meetings where no one said his name. It was as if the whole campus exhaled at once. But normal felt wrong. Like a stage set left standing after the actors had gone. I waited every night for the buzz of my phone, the hiss of sprinklers, the cold stamp of his ritual. Nothing came. By the 10th day, I almost believed it was over. Almost. Then, during a routine bid review, I opened a vendor's folder. Inside, stacked neatly behind the genuine documents, lay a series of COIs I had never seen. Same formatting, same margins. But in the insured field, my name again. Policy numbers ran down the page in sequence. 1 for general liability, 1 for workers' comp, 1 for auto, and then policy type, life, effective, continuous, expiration, 2/14. A chill coiled tight in my stomach. This wasn't past tense. This wasn't archived. This was active coverage. I called Miguel immediately. He came fast. But when he saw the papers, he only pressed his lips together. "This is new," I whispered. "He's still writing me." Miguel tapped the last page with his knuckle. "Or rewriting you. A new policy means a new phase." I sank into the chair, pulse hammering. What does that mean for me? He looked at me steadily. "It means you're not closed. You're renewed." That night, the silence broke. At 2:14 a.m. exactly, the sprinklers outside hissed to life again, and when I opened the back door, a single Polaroid waited on the patio table, held by a red pushpin. Not of me this time. Of Miguel, standing in his office, head bowed over the very folder we had just reviewed together. Timestamp 0.6 AM, and written beneath, in the same block letters as always, "Next file." The words punched the air out of me. My hand trembled so violently, I nearly dropped the photo into the wet grass. Miguel's face in the image tired, focused, unaware, looked like a man already cataloged. I shoved the Polaroid into my jacket and drove, tires hissing over rain-slick asphalt. When I reached his house, dawn had barely scraped the horizon. He opened the door in a t-shirt. Hair mussed. Eyes narrowing the instant he saw my face. "What now?" he asked. Wordless. I pressed the photo into his palm. He studied it for 3 long seconds before muttering a curse under his breath. "So it was never just about you." "It's still about me," I whispered. "I'm the index. You're just the next entry." Miguel's jaw clenched. Then we burned the filing cabinet. That day we met with risk management and campus police in a locked conference room. Blinds drawn. I laid out every Polaroid, every falsified certificate, every document with my name scribbled into the insured field. Miguel dropped the newest photo on top. The word "next" staring up at us like an order. The risk manager's lips pressed thin. "This has gone beyond harassment. It's terrorism by documentation." Campus police nodded, but their eyes were weary. "He's outsmarting cameras." "Badges. Logs. We can't guarantee your safety if he's this embedded." Miguel leaned forward, voice hard. "Then stop reacting. Go offensive." "You mean bait again?" "No," Miguel said. "I mean smoke him out, force his hand. If he needs her predictable, we make her unpredictable. We change the rhythm." That night, I left work at midnight instead of 6. I slept in the library office instead of home. I ate breakfast at dusk. Every move was scripted to shatter his 2:14 ritual. For 2 days, nothing. On the 3rd, at 2:14 in the afternoon, my phone buzzed. A text from the number that had haunted me for weeks. "Good, learning." Beneath it, a photo attachment. My stomach dropped before I opened it. It wasn't me. It was Miguel, again, standing at a vending machine in the facilities shop. Coffee in one hand, phone in the other. Timestamp, 2:14 p.m. He'd shifted focus, adjusted to our adjustment, and scrawled in black marker across the image were 3 words. "File in progress. By evening." Miguel's house lights flickered. He called me with a voice tight as wire. "He's here. I can feel it." "Get out," I said. "Not yet," he whispered. "If he wants me, I want to see his face." The line went dead. I drove to his street on instinct, rain hammering the windshield. His house glowed dimly. One window lit. The driveway was empty. On the porch, a Polaroid was taped to the doorframe. Not Miguel this time. Me, standing in his driveway. Headlights still spilling over my shoulders. "Dime stamp, sai du sa, m," and written across the bottom, in thick black marker. Files merged. Files merged. The photo quivered in my hand. Rain smearing its edges, my headlights glared behind me in the picture. Proof that he was already here close enough to snap me before I'd even stepped out of the car. The porch light flicked once, then went dark. My gut dropped. I shoved the photo into my jacket and pushed through the door. Inside, Miguel's house smelled of damp wood and coffee grounds. The single lamp in the living room burned low, its shade tilted. His jacket was slung over the back of a chair. His boots sat neatly by the mat. But Miguel wasn't there. I called his name. Soft at first, then louder, until my voice broke against the silence. Upstairs, a floorboard creaked. I moved toward the staircase, flashlight in hand, heart stuttering. The sound came again, deliberate, unhurried, not the shuffle of someone startled. but the tread of someone waiting to be found. I lifted the light. On the third step, a Polaroid had been pinned with a red pushpin into the wood itself. The photo showed Miguel, seated in his own kitchen, wrists resting on the table, face unreadable, timestamp 2:14 a.m., and beneath, scrawled in block letters, witness attests. I snatched the photo and ran to the kitchen. Empty, just a coffee mug in the sink and a yellow pad with Miguel's handwriting scrawled across it. Notes about the bait operation, my name circled twice. Then I saw the envelope on the table, manila, thick, my own handwriting on the front, procurement confidential. My stomach lurched. I hadn't written that. I tore it open. Inside was a stack of Polaroids, every one of them of me, at work, at home, in the grocery aisle, sleeping, driving, always timestamp 2:14. The last photo was fresh, edges still curling. It showed me right now. In Miguel's kitchen, envelope in hand, flashlight beam caught mid-arc. I froze, bile rising in my throat. The caption at the bottom was different this time. Final signature required. Behind me, the floorboard creaked again. I spun. Flashlight slashing across the kitchen doorway. A figure stood there compact, hooded, posture too neutral to be anyone else. His face was shadowed, but his hands were empty, lifted slightly as though approaching a frightened animal. "You've read the file," he said softly. "Now all that's left is to sign." My voice came out raw. "Where's Miguel?" The man tilted his head, almost kindly, already documented. He stepped forward into the light. The scar at his jawline gleamed. His eyes were unremarkable, terrifyingly so ordinary enough to vanish in any crowd. "This isn't about papers," I whispered. His smile was small, patient. "Everything is about papers, records, proof. You, me, him were just documents waiting for the right expiration date." And then he held out a Polaroid. Still lump. The chemicals streaking faintly under his thumb. It showed me, standing inches from him. Flashlight aimed. Fear carved across my face. Timestamp 0:2 am. Beneath it, the caption, "Sign here." The Polaroid trembled in his hand. The ink still glistening. "Sign here." The block letters looked almost ceremonial, like the last line of a contract. I wanted to run, to scream, to grab something sharp from the kitchen drawer and lunge, but my body betrayed me, rooted, quivering, caught like a pinned document under glass. He stepped closer. The camera strap dangled from his wrist, swaying. "It's only a formality," he said gently. "You've been part of the file from the start. All that's left is acknowledgement." His calmness was worse than a threat. It was bureaucratic, like a notary verifying identity. He wasn't here to fight. He was here to finalize. "Where's Miguel?" My voice cracked. He smiled faintly, as if I'd asked about a misplaced folder. "Cross-referenced, secured. You'll both be easier to retrieve together." I forced my eyes away from him, scanning the kitchen, the yellow pad, the coffee mug, the stack of Polaroids. My gaze snagged on the ultraviolet marker Miguel had left by the notes, its cap loose. An idea flickered reckless, desperate. "I'll sign," I whispered, lowering the flashlight beam. "But I want a pen." His brows lifted, amused, always procedural. He held out a ballpoint clipped to his collar. I reached for it, but instead grabbed the UV marker, snapping the cap with my teeth. My hand shook, but I dragged the glowing ink across the fresh Polaroid in his palm, scrawling one word in jagged strokes: void. For the first time, his calm cracked. He recoiled, staring at the smeared letters under the black light glow. The photo hissed faintly. Chemicals reacting. That's not how this works, he said. Voice sharp now. Clipped. That's exactly how it works. I shot back, my voice steadied. Earliest expiration governs, and I just canceled you. For a long moment, silence pressed down like a lid. The rain against the windows seemed to pause. His eyes searched mine, ordinary and empty, and enraged all at once. Then, slowly, he tucked the ruined Polaroid back into his jacket. This file isn't closed, he murmured. It's deferred. He stepped backward, into the hallway shadow, and was gone. No sound of a door, no creak of boards, just absence. I collapsed against the table, UV marker still in my fist, chest heaving. The stack of Polaroids spilled across the floor. Faces of me staring up like copies from a broken printer. Miguel's notes lay crumpled beside them, his handwriting underlined twice. The only thing he values is proof. At dawn, I found Miguel, or what was left of him, in the basement utility room, alive, bound, shaken but unbroken. He met my eyes. Voice hoarse. He wanted me as a witness. We cut the cords with a kitchen knife. Neither of us spoke of what it meant that the man had let me find him, as if that too was part of the file. That night, I didn't go home, neither did Miguel. We sat in his living room, lights blazing, both too wired to blink. The folder of Polaroids lay between us on the table, the top one still glowing faintly with the word I'd scrawled, void. For the first time in weeks, 2:14 a.m. came and went without a photo, without a buzz, without sprinklers, just silence. But as the clock struck 2:15, Miguel whispered what I had been too afraid to say. He's not gone, he's just revising. Jesus revising. The words sat between us, heavier than the stack of Polaroids. Miguel's voice was raw, but certain, like he'd seen the next draft already written. We waited. The clock ticked toward 3 a.m. No photos, no texts, just the hollow hum of appliances and rain. Still, neither of us dared to move. By morning, fatigue won. We slumped into uneasy sleep on his couches. Polaroids spread like a paper graveyard between us. When I woke, sunlight burned across the coffee table. The stack was gone. Only one photo remained. It wasn't of me this time, or Miguel. It was the two of us exactly as we were now, slumped on opposite couches. Exhaustion etched into our faces. The morning sun cutting across the room. Timestamp, Helsed Holding, AM. And at the bottom, written in neat block letters, revised edition. Miguel swore under his breath. He's moved the hour. No, I whispered. Throats dry. He's moved us. The timestamp was proof he'd stopped treating 2:14 as law. He could shift the ritual at will, which meant we'd lost the one constant we thought we understood. That day at work, nothing felt stable. My office chair had been nudged half an inch from the desk. The blinds sat at a slightly different angle. My password worked. But the desktop background had been changed to plain white. No icons. And sitting neatly in the center of the desk blotter was a single sheet of paper. A certificate template, blank except for 2 fields filled in. Insured, my name. Witness, Miguel. Effective date, 7/14. Expiration, pending. My knees buckled. I sat hard in the chair. staring at the page until the letters blurred. Miguel appeared in the doorway a moment later. He saw it and went pale. He's binding us together. Like a policy. Like a contract. Miguel corrected grimly. That night, neither of us went home. We checked into a secure room on campus. Badged and bolted, the cameras in every corner. Campus police sat in the hallway. IT scrubbed the network connection clean. We told ourselves this time he wouldn't breach it. But it's 14 AM sharp. The printer in the corner sputtered awake. We hadn't sent a job. One page slid into the tray, then another, then another. By the time it stopped, a full stack sat waiting. I picked one up with shaking hands. It was a policy binder cover sheet, neatly formatted. My name, Miguel's name. Title, joint file. Status, active. Expiration, 7/14. And across the bottom margin, in faint gray letters that repeated like a watermark, signatures required. The papers were still warm when I touched them. Dozens of copies, each identical. My name and Miguel's printed like we were business partners in some grotesque policy. Signatures required stamped over and over. Faint but insistent. Like the whisper of a chorus. Miguel gathered the stack, jaw tight, and shoved it into the shred bin. The teeth chewed through with a grinding whine. When the last page disappeared, he muttered, "No signatures, no contract." But an hour later, when I opened my email, the first message in my inbox was an auto-response. "Thank you for signing. Your file is now active." The sender? No reply. My stomach dropped. I hadn't signed anything. Neither had Miguel. But somehow, the system thought we had. At 7:14 that evening, the sprinklers outside the secure room hissed to life. Water streaked the windows until we couldn't see the streetlights beyond. A knock came at the door, 3 slow raps. The officers stationed outside turned. Startled, one of them called, "Who is it?" No answer. Another knock, deliberate, patient. The officers pulled the door open with weapons drawn. The hallway was empty. Just a single Polaroid on the floor. They carried it in like it might explode. It showed the secure room from above, Miguel and I inside. The shred bin full of curled paper strips at our feet. Timestamp, Samsas, 14 p.m. Beneath it, in block letters, copies retained. That night, Miguel and I sat awake, backs to the wall, watching the blinds shiver in the sprinkler spray. "He's not trying to scare us anymore," Miguel said, voice flat. "He's documenting us, every step, like we're already a closed file, just waiting for signatures." I hugged my knees. Then what happens when he decides we've expired? Miguel didn't answer. His silence was heavier than words. The next morning, when I slid into my office, a fresh stack of paper waited on my desk. Not Polaroids this time, not certificates. A transcript, typed clean, margins sharp, like minutes from a meeting. File 1, procurement witness. File 2, facilities witness. Beneath that, line after line of dialogue, our dialogue. The words Miguel and I had spoken to each other the night before, in the secure room, when no one else was there. Every stammer, every pause, every silence recorded in black ink. At the bottom of the page, draft complete, awaiting signatures, and a blank line under each of our names. Miguel appeared in the doorway behind me, pale as the page. He didn't need to ask what I was looking at. He just whispered, "He's not writing about us anymore. He's writing through us." Before I could reply, The office printer sputtered to life again. Page after page slid into the tray, all of them blank except for one word in the center. Over and over. Like a chant. Sign, 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 sign. The printer whined until the tray overflowed, papers spilling to the floor in a blizzard of white, each one stamped with the same single word. Sign. Miguel yanked the power cord. But the sound didn't stop. The rollers ground empty. Phantom sheets feeding through. The smell of hot toner thickened the air. I clutched one of the pages, hands shaking. He doesn't just want us scared, he wants compliance. Miguel's lips thinned. He wants consent. That's why he keeps saying signatures. The idea curdled in my stomach. Consent wasn't about ink, it was about acknowledgement. Every time I answered his messages, every time I handled a Polaroid, maybe even every time I spoke his words aloud. I'd been feeding the file. I think, my throat tightened, I think I've already signed. Miguel stared at me, horror dawning. That evening, we refused to leave the secure room. We bolted the door, dragged a filing cabinet across it. The officers stationed outside kept their radios open, voices low and steady, promising they saw nothing. At 7:14 p.m., the lights flickered once. Then, a soft thunk at the window. I turned, another thunk, and another. The glass pane was peppered with Polaroids. One after another, slapping against it as if an invisible hand were pressing them flat. They stuck to the glass without tape, without pins, dozens, then hundreds, layering until the outside light was gone. I moved closer, breath fogging the glass. My reflection fractured in a sea of images, every one of me, laughing once at lunch, sitting on the bus, signing a delivery receipt. 1,000 tiny acts I didn't remember anyone watching. And in the corner of each, the timestamp had shifted again. No longer 2:14, no longer 7:14. Every photo bore the same number, now. Miguel dragged me back from the window. His grip iron. He's collapsing time. He doesn't need an hour anymore. He can file us whenever he wants. I buried my face in my hands. Then there's no way out. Miguel's voice was fierce, desperate. There has to be. He thrives on patterns. If we refuse to follow them, if we refuse to sign, he loses. But even as he said it, the lights cut out. The printer in the corner roared to life again, feeding a single page into the tray. I stepped closer, dread already burning my throat. It wasn't blank this time. It was a certificate of completion. File, joint. Status, closed. Signatures, verified. At the bottom, in black ink, our names, mine and Miguel's, written in handwriting that matched us perfectly. Neither of us had lifted a pen. The page trembled in my hand. My name looped in familiar strokes, an exact copy of my signature. The tilt, the flourish. Miguel's was there too, precise and square, just like the forms he'd signed for years. We hadn't touched a pen. Miguel snatched the page, eyes wild. This isn't possible. It's not a forgery, I whispered. My stomach felt hollow. It's like he's already filed us, past tense. The lights buzzed back on, but weaker now, dim and yellowed, as if the room itself were fading. The officers pounded at the door, radios crackling, but their voices sounded distant, muffled, as though we'd already slipped into some sealed archive. Miguel pressed his palms against the table, leaning close. Listen to me. He wants us to believe we're trapped in his file, but we're not ink, we're not paper. The printer whirred again, spitting out Polaroids one by one. Each showed us inside this very room. But seconds ahead, me clutching the page, Miguel reaching for the doorknob, both of us staring at the next print before it even slid out. We were being documented in real time, pre-written. Stop. Miguel barked at the machine, slamming it with his fist. You don't get to write me. But another photo slipped free. It showed him mid-motion, fist lifted, rage on his face. At the bottom, witness certified. A sound like tearing fabric filled the air. Though nothing moved, my vision rippled. Edges warping like wet paper, I felt light, like something was lifting me from myself, flattening me into 2 dimensions. I gasped, clutching Miguel's arm. Do you feel that? He nodded, teeth bared, gripping my wrist back like an anchor. He's filing us. The Polaroids scattered across the floor began to flutter, as though invisible hands were thumbing through them. One by one, they stacked themselves into a neat pile at the center of the room. The top photo showed us both side by side, clutching each other's arms. Faces stretched with terror. Timestamp, file closed. The lights blew out. The door burst open at last. Officers shouting. Flashlights cutting across the room. But the table was bare. The printer was still. And Miguel and I were gone. All that remained was the stack of Polaroids, bound with a single red pushpin through the corner. The first officer lifted it with shaking hands. The top photo stared back, the empty, secure room. Stamped at the bottom, in block letters, record retrieved. Record. The officers tore through the room, radios hissing panic. But their voices barely scratched the silence. To them, it was just another empty office. Blinds rattling from the HVAC. The stack of Polaroids was the only proof we had ever been there. From my side, wherever that side was, I could see them, dimly, like through frosted glass. I screamed until my throat tore, but my voice made no sound in their world. Miguel was beside me, or at least the flat impression of him. His outline bled at the edges, as though the file that contained him was still developing. He pressed his 2-dimensional palm against mine. We're inside the record, he rasped. His voice dampened, muffled, like it was traveling through paper. He's archived us. I wanted to deny it, to claw through the glass, but when I looked down, my own arm was thin as a ribbon, skin pale and fibrous like newsprint. I was becoming a document. The stack of Polaroids shuffled itself, unseen hands flipping through. Every image was of us, arguing, running, working, breathing. Some I remembered, some I didn't, some hadn't happened yet. Miguel grabbed one of the future images, the two of us sitting at his kitchen table. Faces calm. Signatures scrawled neatly on a contract between us. He ripped it in half. The air shivered. My body jolted. A thread of 3-dimensional weight tugging me back for the first time since we vanished. Miguel's eyes burned. That's it. His file is only as strong as its evidence, if we destroy it. Before he could finish, the stack of Polaroids whipped upward like a deck in a hurricane, scattering through the air. The torn photo in his hand fused itself back together, the rip sealing in a chemical shimmer. On its bottom margin, new words appeared. Alteration detected. Revision complete. I fell to my knees, or the paper-thin version of knees, around us. The office blurred. The officers were gone. The room stretched taller. Walls curling. Corners flattening. It wasn't a room anymore. It was a filing cabinet. Metal drawers stretched into the dark. Endless rows clanging open and shut with no hands to pull them. Each drawer face bore a tiny brass plate, Each plate had a name, names of people I knew, names I didn't. Some drawers glowed faintly with fresh ink. My heart stopped when I saw mine, my name, file closed. And right below it, another drawer sliding into place. The brass plate engraving itself letter by letter. Miguel, file closed. He gripped my wrist tighter. We're not staying in here. But the drawers around us groaned, metal shrieking as they slid open. And from inside, thin hands of paper reached out, clutching, grasping, pulling us toward the folders stacked within. Each folder bore a red pushpin through the corner. Each folder whispered the same word in unison, rustling like dry leaves. Sign. The sound swelled, a forest of whispers rattling inside metal walls. Sign, sign, sign. The paper hands clawed at us, brittle but endless, pulling me toward the drawer with my name. My knees buckled as if gravity itself had turned. Miguel yanked me sideways, both of us stumbling down an aisle between towering drawers. "Don't let them touch you," he shouted, his voice shredded by the echo. I glanced back and saw one of the hands snag the hem of my sleeve, where it brushed. The fabric flattened, edges crisping like the page of a book. I tore free, heart screaming, and the sleeve remained in the hand's grip, a perfect rectangle of paper printed with my arm. We ran. Drawers thundered open around us. Brass plates engraving names I almost recognized. Students, contractors, staff, people who had once brushed my life in ordinary ways. Miguel's breath was ragged beside me. He's cataloged everyone. The aisle ended at a narrow gap, a crack of light slicing through the dark. Without thinking, I lunged toward it, paper hands grasping inches from my skin. We burst through. The light blinded me. I stumbled, bracing against a desk. Not a desk, my desk. The secure room was gone. I was back in procurement. Morning sun angling through the blinds. The familiar stack of vendor files sat in their neat alphabet. The plant on the windowsill drooped the same way it had yesterday. Miguel crashed beside me, gasping, as 3 co-workers passed in the hallway outside, chatting casually. They didn't see us, didn't hear us. I lifted a folder. My hand passed through it like smoke. Miguel's voice shook. "We're not back. We're layered." On my blotter, a new page appeared, clean, centered. Addendum. File, joint. Status, archived. Next review, 2/14. At the bottom, signature on file. And under it, in faint gray text repeating like a watermark, the whisper we couldn't escape. Sign, sign, sign. Miguel slammed his fist on the desk. Though it made no sound, he won't let go. I stared at the addendum. My pulse thudded with sudden, terrible clarity. He doesn't need us to sign. We already did. Every time we looked at the evidence, every time we read his words aloud, we acknowledge the record. That was consent. The paper on the desk rippled, as if pleased. New lines inked themselves across the bottom. Acknowledgement verified. File complete. And then, in fresh black letters, beneath both our names, expiration now. Expiration now. The letters bled across the page like wet ink, spreading until the whole sheet darkened. My body seized, vision narrowing, as if those words had pulled the air from my lungs. Miguel staggered, clutching the edge of my desk. He's closing us out right now. The blinds snapped shut with a violent crack. Papers lifted from the file stacks, whirling like startled birds. Each sheet carried our names, our faces, Our signatures, multiplying until the office stormed with evidence. I tried to scream, but my throat was dry. Paper thin, my skin prickled with the same fibrous stiffness I'd felt in the filing cabinet world. My fingertips blanched, whitening into page margins. No, not yet. Miguel growled, his voice tearing. He ripped one of the floating sheets in half. The air shuddered. For an instant. The ink bled backward, retracting like spilled oil sucked into a drain. My lungs filled again. I gasped, clutching his arm. But then, every other sheet in the storm bent mid-air and stitched itself back together. Seemed fusing seamlessly. At once, 1,000 copies of my face turned toward me. The captions beneath identical. File closed. Miguel dragged me under the desk, as if it would shield us. Listen, every document lives in duplicate. In triplicate. That's why shredding didn't work. Destroy one. And another confirms it. Then how do we escape? My voice shredded on the question. He leaned close, breath hot against my ear. The only files that don't haunt us are the ones that were never created. He can't archive what doesn't exist. But he's already written us. I choked out. Then, we make ourselves blank. The storm of pages slammed against the walls, pinning themselves in neat rows until every surface was plastered. The floor, the ceiling, the glass. The office was no longer a room. It was a binder, thick with us. At the center of the desk, a new Polaroid appeared. It showed Miguel and me huddled beneath the desk, exactly as we were now. Timestamp, now. Underneath, in thick letters, final signature required. The photo pulsed, edges curling like it was alive. Miguel locked eyes with me. Don't read it, don't look at it, don't acknowledge it. But it was already too late. My gaze had caught the words, and the photo began to drag me forward. Like gravity itself lived inside its frame. Inside, the pull was invisible but undeniable, like a riptide. My palms skidded across the floor as the Polaroid drew me closer. Its glossy surface swelling, deepening, becoming a window. Miguel wrapped his arms around my waist, anchoring me. Fight it. He only wins if you step into the frame. I already looked. I gasped. My nails scraped the tile. But it didn't matter. The tug was inside me, a hook set deep the moment my eyes touched those words. The Polaroid pulsed again. And now the image inside wasn't still. It moved. I saw myself thrashing on the floor, while Miguel clung to me. Our tiny paper selves struggling exactly as we were in real time. And then, in the photo, he appeared hooded, scar at the jaw, stepping into frame behind us with calm inevitability. No, Miguel snarled, kicking the photo across the floor, but it slid back, magnetized, stopping exactly where it had been. The caption burned brighter. Final signature required. My vision blurred. Words. Margins. Lines crawled across my skin. My wrist glowed faintly with the looping scrawl of my own name, my signature written without pen. Miguel, I cried. It's signing me right on my skin. He grabbed my arm. The ink seeped faster where his hand touched. His eyes widened. Horror-struck. It's binding us both. Desperation cracked something in him. He tore the UV marker from his pocket, the same one I'd used before, and scrawled furiously across my arm, void. The pull faltered. The Polaroid shivered. Its image static fuzzing for the first time. My body fell limp against the floor, lungs sucking in sweet air. But the photo didn't vanish. Instead, new text scrawled across the bottom. Jagged. Hurried. As if the archivist himself was furious. Void not accepted. Resubmit. The office groaned. Walls bending inward as if the binder were closing around us. File folders snapped shut one by one with deafening cracks. Miguel hauled me upright. We're not documents. We're not evidence. Say it out loud. I choked the words through shaking teeth. I'm not a file. I'm not a signature. The binders paused. The storm of pages hung midair. Uncertain. Miguel shouted into the dark. You hear that? We refuse acknowledgement. For a heartbeat. Everything stilled. Then the Polaroid hissed. Burning white hot. Its image erasing into blankness. The caption changed one last time. Revision pending. And with a violent crack, the photo folded in on itself, taking the entire storm of pages with it. The room collapsed into silence. I was on my knees, panting, skin raw where the ink had burned. Miguel leaned against the desk, sweat dripping into his eyes. Did we win? I whispered. He shook his head slowly, staring at the single pushpin rolling across the floor. The only thing left behind. No, he said. His voice was a rasp. He's just waiting for the next draft. The pushpin spun once. Twice. Then stilled on the tile. For a long time, Miguel and I only stared at it. Both of us too afraid to touch. The silence after the collapse felt wrong. Not peace, just pause. Like the breath between the next line of a typewriter. Finally, Miguel bent, scooped up the pin, and slipped it into his pocket. If this is his seal, he murmured, then maybe it's the only leverage we've got. I wanted to believe that, but deep down, I knew he had 1,000 more. Life outside the binder went on. People passed us in the halls, their voices casual, their laughter grating in its normalcy. No one knew that Miguel and I had been flattened into records and almost filed away. No one else saw the faint gray text crawling at the corners of papers on my desk, whispers of revision pending that vanished when I blinked. At night, I barely slept. When I did, I dreamed of drawers sliding open, brass plates engraving names, my name, Miguel's, entire cabinets filled with everyone I loved. Always the whisper, rhythmic as rain on glass. Sign, sign, sign. On the third night, I woke at 2, 14 again, though that hour was no longer sacred. It was still his. A single Polaroid lay on the pillow beside me. It showed a sheet of paper, nothing else. Blank margins, empty lines. Caption, draft. My heart sank. He wasn't finished. He was starting over. When I showed it to Miguel the next morning, he closed his eyes, shoulders sagging. He's rebuilding the file. He doesn't need the old versions. He can always make a new draft. But how do we stop a draft? I asked, my voice cracking. We can tear pages. Voix signature. Scream refusals. But he just revises. He always revises. Miguel opened his hand and showed me the pushpin, gleaming red in the light. Every file needs a fastener. Without it, the pages scatter. I stared. You think this pin is holding us together? I think it's holding him together. That night, we drove to the annex. The building sat hunched under floodlights. Windows dark. Tape sagging from the doors. It had all started here, the logbook, the Polaroid, the basement. We carried no cameras, no phones, only the pushpin. Inside, the hall smelled of mold and dust. Our footsteps echoed too loud. At the basement stairwell, the air turned damp. as if the sprinklers had only just shut off. At the bottom, the door marked trenching stood Ayar. Miguel raised a finger to his lips, then nudged it open. The room inside was empty, crate overturned, corkboard bare, blankets moldering in the corner. Only one thing remained: a single, wide file cabinet, metal face gleaming dully in our flashlights. The brass plate read, Archivist, and in the keyhole, already waiting, was a space perfectly shaped for a red pushpin. The cabinet loomed in the center of the empty room, dust haloed in our beams. Its surface was too clean. No rust. Nowhere like it hadn't aged with the rest of the annex. Just waiting. Miguel's breath rasped beside me. That's his drawer. The pushpin burned cold in my pocket, heavier than it should have been. When I pulled it out, the red plastic head glimmered faintly, as if lit from inside. It fits, I whispered. Careful. Miguel warned. This isn't just a lock, it's a keystone. I held the pin over the keyhole. The air around us shifted like a deep intake of breath. Pages rustled in the shadows, though there were no pages here. The cabinet vibrated faintly, metal groaning, as if it already knew what I carried. What if opening it sets him loose? I asked. Miguel's eyes burned. What if not opening it means he keeps drafting us forever? The whisper rose around us, the one that haunted every dream. Sign, sign, sign. But this time it wasn't a demand. It sounded eager, anticipatory. I shoved the pushpin into the keyhole. The cabinet shuddered. The whisper cut to silence. For a moment, nothing. Then the drawer slid open on its own. Cold air spilled out, heavy with mildew and ink. Inside was no stack of folders, no archive. Just a single manila file, stamped in black across the tab. Drafts. Miguel reached first. Hand steady, though, his jaw was tight. He flipped it open. Inside, Polaroids, dozens, hundreds. But these were different, not finished. Faces blurred, figures half-formed, pages of text smeared into gibberish, failed versions of me, failed versions of Miguel, false signatures crossed out, expiration dates scribbled over, entire lives that had been attempts. Igagd. Bile in my throat. He's been writing us, over and over. Miguel's hands rifled through the mess, then stilled. Look. At the bottom lay a single blank Polaroid. Its border was clean, untouched. No timestamp. No caption. Waiting. The pushpin in the lock clicked softly, as though acknowledging its place. And from the empty photograph, words etched themselves in real time, letter by letter. Final draft. Beneath it, space for 2 signatures. Miguel's hand clamped around mine, so hard it hurt. His whisper was jagged. If he gets this one signed, we don't get another chance. The Polaroid pulsed in the folder, its empty white center beginning to fill with shapes our silhouettes. Fa, emerging grain by grain. The archivist was writing us again. The Polaroid glowed faintly in the folder, the white surface bleeding with outlines my hair. Miguel's shoulders. The curve of my hand clenched in his, grain by grain. We were taking shape. Miguel slammed the folder shut, but the light still seeped through the edges, pulsing like a heartbeat. We have to destroy it, he hissed. We tried before, I whispered, throat tight. It doesn't stay destroyed, it just rewrites. Then we stop it before it finishes developing. He grabbed the UV marker from his jacket, the same one that had saved me once before, and scrawled across the folder in jagged strokes. Void. The cabinet roared. The sound wasn't metal, but voices, thousands of voices shrieking at once. Papers rustling like wings. The drawer rattled, slamming open wider, and the folder tore from Miguel's hands, landing back inside with a slap. The word void bled away into nothing. The folder flipped itself open again. The Polaroid now showed more detail, our faces clear, eyes wide. Exactly as we were in this moment, crouched by the cabinet, and underneath, new text formed with deliberate strokes. Signatures required. The annex walls groaned, plaster cracking, as if the whole building were bending around this demand. The whisper rose again, not eager this time, but furious, desperate. Sign, sign, sign. The pushpin in the lock vibrated. My teeth ached from the sound. Miguel gripped my arm. We can't sign, no matter what. If we do, he closes the file forever. I know, I said, but my skin already itched. Letters threading faintly across my forearm like veins of ink. My name, his too. The archivist wasn't asking anymore, he was filling us in. I snatched the Polaroid from the folder. The surface burned my fingers. The images of us inside the frame turned their heads, looked at me. Miguel shouted, "Don't let it finish." The Polaroid buckled in my hands, chemicals hissing. My reflection in its glossy surface twisted not me, but a flattened, filed version, smiling blankly. Beneath the caption, new words began to scrawl. Expiration. Now. I screamed and tore the photo in half. For the first time, it didn't heal. Instead, both halves burst into white flame, curling into ash that smelled of wet ink and ozone. The cabinet screamed, drawers slammed open and shut in rapid fire. Brass plates engraving and erasing names too fast to read. Miguel Yangat mo back, shielding me as the entire drawer labeled archivist buckled inward, its face denting like a can under pressure. The pushpin in the lock shot free, clattering across the floor. And then silence. The folder inside the drawer was gone. So were the Polaroids. The cabinet sat hollow, its brass plate blank. Miguel's chest heaved. Did we, voice, low and even, slid from the shadows of the room. "You can void a draft?" it said. The hooded figure stepped into the light, scar gleaming at his jaw. His hands were empty. Calm, his eyes ordinary, terrifyingly ordinary. But you cannot void the author. The hooded figure stood only a few feet away, the glow of our flashlights barely touching him. His face was still that awful paradox ordinary. Forgettable. The kind you'd pass in a hallway without a second glance. Yet here, in the gutted annex basement, he was all that existed. Miguel shifted, putting himself between me and the man. His voice was steady but tight. "The drafts are gone. The cabinet's empty. You've got nothing left." The archivist tilted his head, almost amused. "Files are never gone. They're retained. Backed up. Migrated. One archive burns. Another opens." He stepped closer. The sound of his boots was wrong. Not footsteps, but the flutter of paper. I forced my voice past my dry throat. "Why us?" His gaze slid to me. "You noticed. Most don't. You read the errors. The numbers. The patterns. You gave me acknowledgement every time you said it aloud. That's how a record lives, through acknowledgement." Miguel spat on the floor. "You're not a record keeper. You're a parasite." The archivist smiled faintly. "Every parasite needs a host. Every file needs a witness." His eyes flicked between us, and now I have two. The walls of the annex shivered, papers peeled from the plaster, fluttering down around us. Each sheet carried our faces, stamped with timestamps that no longer mattered to 14. 7:14 now layered over one another until the numbers blurred. Miguel drew the UV marker again, gripping it like a weapon. We're not signing. The archivist's smile widened just slightly. You already did. Every time you looked. Every time you spoke. Every time you fought to escape, you gave consent to the record. Fighting only strengthens it. My chest clenched. Then how do we stop it? The archivist's expression softened, almost pitying. You don't. Records aren't stopped. They're only maintained, or destroyed with the subject. His hand slipped into his jacket. I braced for a weapon. Instead, he pulled out a Polaroid. Fresh. Still developing. He shook it once and held it up. The photo showed Miguel and me, side by side, hands braced on the same red pushpin. Our expressions weren't terrified, though they were calm, resigned. At the bottom, final draft. And beneath that, in bold black letters, signatures verified. Miguel swore under his breath. That photo doesn't exist. We never did that. But even as he said it, I felt the weight of the pushpin in my palm, cold, heavy, real. When I opened my hand, the red plastic head gleamed faintly in the flashlight beam, exactly as the photo had shown. The pushpin gleamed in my palm. Cold as metal, though, it was only plastic. My breath caught. I hadn't picked it up, not since it flew free of the cabinet. Yet here it was. Exactly where the Polaroid claimed it would be. Miguel's voice dropped to a rasp. He's not just recording us anymore. He's pre-writing us. The archivist's gaze softened, like a teacher pleased with a clever student. Recognition at last. He tapped the Polaroid with one finger. Records are stronger than reality. You can resist. But the draft always becomes the file. The pushpin pulsed faintly in my hand, as if it wanted to anchor itself again. My skin prickled where it touched. Miguel grabbed my wrist. Drop it. I tried. My fingers wouldn't unclench. The pin's point bit into my palm. Not sharp, but insistent, like it was stitching me in place. The archivist stepped closer, voice calm as a signature line. When the witness holds the fastener, the file is complete. Let it pierce, and you will finally be closed. The whisper rose again, louder than ever, shaking plaster from the annex ceiling. Sign, sign, sign. Miguel tore the UV marker from his pocket. Scrawling across the Polaroid the archivist held, the glowing ink spread like cracks across the glossy surface. The photo hissed, its image of us distorting, the words final draft bleeding into black streaks. For a moment, the archivist's hand twitched, the calm faltering. But then, with a slow breath, the photo healed. Our images sharpened again, clearer than before. Faces drawn in finer detail. Beneath the caption, new text etched itself. Darker. Final. Amendment filed. Signatures permanent. The pin in my hand grew hot. Smoke curled from my skin. My arm jerked against my will, moving toward the cabinet as if pulled by invisible strings. Miguel gripped me with both hands, teeth clenched, trying to hold me back. Fight it. I can't. The words ripped out of me. Strangled. It's writing me. The cabinet drawer screeched open. Hungry. The brass plate engraved itself as I watched. My name. File closed. The archivist's voice slid through the roar. Quiet, but undeniable. You've been archived from the moment you looked. This is only the filing. My knees buckled. The pushpin's tip hovered inches from the cabinet's keyhole. If it slid home, the file would close forever. The cabinet's brass plate glowed. My name gouged so deep into it, I thought I could hear the letters screaming. My hand hovered inches from the keyhole, the pushpin burning into my palm. Miguel braced against me with all his strength, dragging me back. His face was twisted in fury and terror. Don't let him file you. You're not paper. You're not his. The archivist tilted his head, watching us like a man observing lab specimens. You misunderstand. This isn't about what you are. It's about what you'll be remembered as. Flesh rots. Ink survives. The whispering chorus surged until the air itself vibrated. Sign, sign, sign. The pin shuddered, point pressing closer, as though every whisper was pushing me forward. No, Miguel roared, with a wild move. He yanked the UV marker from his pocket and jammed the glowing tip into the pushpin itself. A crack split the air like lightning. The red head of the pin flared white-hot. Hissing, smoke curled between my fingers. For a heartbeat. The cabinet froze. The whispers cut short. The archivist's calm expression faltered, eyes narrowing. The pushpin blackened, warping, its plastic head bubbling like melted wax. My grip finally broke. I flung it across the floor. It hit the wall with a sharp tack, embedding deep into plaster. The cabinet shrieked. Drawers slammed in and out. Brass plates flashing through names too fast to read. A sound like tearing paper ripped through the annex, as if entire files, entire lives were being shredded at once. Miguel pulled me back, shielding me with his body. We broke it. No, I whispered, staring at the archivist, because he was smiling. The cabinet wasn't his prison. It was his tool. And now, freed from the pushpin, he didn't need it anymore. The Polaroid in his hand developed fully at last. Our faces were sharp, clear, already stamped. At the bottom, new words appeared, letter by letter, signatures retained, file duplicated. And as I watched, 2 more cabinets groaned into existence behind him fresh, gleaming, drawers yawning wide. One engraved itself with my name, the other with Miguel's. Our duplicates were ready. The 2 new cabinets slammed into place, their drawers sliding open like jaws. Inside, rows of folders gleamed white and fresh, edges sharp as blades. Each one bore a brass tag stamped with my name, Miguel's name, repeating endlessly down the spines. Miguel's voice cracked with fury. He's not closing us, he's multiplying us. The archivist tucked the Polaroid into his jacket with clinical care, as if shelving it. Every record has duplicates, originals, backups, microfilm, digital copies. You thought one file was the end? He spread his hands. A good archive never ends. The whispering rose again, not just sign, but other words now, layered and relentless. Copy, duplicate, file, file, file. The drawers exhaled a gust of cold air that smelled of ink and mildew. Papers stirred, slithering out like snakes. Blank sheets wrapped around my ankles. Miguel's wrists, tugging us toward our respective drawers. I kicked and tore. But every sheet I ripped only split into 2 more. Smaller, sharper. The harder I fought, the more of me was being made. Miguel thrashed, teeth bared. But one of the pages latched to his arm. His skin rippled, turning pale, fibrous. Letters crawled up his wrist like veins. His own signature bled through his flesh, repeating in black ink. "No," I screamed. Clawing at the page, my fingers passed straight through it, was as if the paper was already more real than I was. The archivist stepped closer, his voice patient, almost tender. "You are preserved now. No decay, no loss. Every version of you, intact. Miguel Espat." His voice hoarse. "That's not preservation, it's erasure." The archivist smiled faintly. "Erasure is just another kind of storage." The drawers yawned wider. My cabinet's folders rustled expectantly. Brass tag glowing with my name. And then I saw it nestled among the pristine folders, one file darker than the rest. Its brass tag didn't read my name. It read only one word, etched deep enough to scar the plate: void. The same word I had scrawled in ultraviolet across his photo. The archivist hadn't destroyed it. He'd filed it away. And as I stared, the folder shifted its cover lifting, as though inviting me in. Miguel saw it too, his eyes locked on mine. "That's it," he rasped. The only flaw in his system. He kept the void. The archivist's calm finally cracked, his head snapping toward the dark folder. For the first time, his voice sharpened. "Don't touch that. Don't touch." The air thickened, vibrating with his command. The drawers clanged shut in unison. The whispering silenced in an instant, as if the entire archive itself obeyed. Miguel's voice cut through, ragged but defiant. "If you're afraid of it, that's where we hit you." The archivist stepped closer, each bootfall fluttering like turning pages. His face was still maddeningly ordinary, but his eyes burned now, flat with authority. The void is not a tool, it is absence. Absence cannot be filed. But the drawer with the brass plate void rattled as if resisting him. Its edges bled with ultraviolet shimmer, the same ink I had scrawled months ago. Still alive. Still burning. I lurched toward it, pages wrapped around my ankles, biting into my skin. But I dragged myself forward. "If it can't be filed," I gasped, "then it can unfile you." The archivist's calm broke. He lunged, hand shooting out, not with rage, but with fear. Miguel slammed into him, driving him sideways into the wall of drawers. The metal groaned with the impact. Polaroids spilled from his jacket, fluttering across the floor images of me, of Miguel, of us both in endless iterations. Some were exact copies, others distorted drafts with missing eyes, half-scrawled signatures. The archivist's hand shot out, grabbing Miguel's wrist. His skin immediately rippled, veins filling with black ink that spelled his name over and over, as though even his blood was being catalogued. I screamed and dove for the void drawer. The closer I got, the colder the air became, until frost crackled along the brass plate. My hand hovered over the file inside, heavy, black, trembling, as if it despised being touched. The archivist's voice shattered across the room, louder than any whisper before. "Don't acknowledge it." The drawer slammed at my fingers, nearly crushing them, but I held on. My nails scraped the rough folder cover. Ultraviolet light bled into my skin, burning but not destroying. I yanked it free. The entire annex shook, the other drawers slamming wildly open and shut, brass tags erasing and rewriting too fast to read. Miguel wrenched free of the archivist's grip, his arm seared with ink. "Open it," he roared. I hesitated. The folder vibrated, wrong in my hands, as if something inside was clawing to stay hidden. The archivist's voice dropped. "Low. pleading now. You don't understand. That folder erases everything. You. Him. Me. Open it. And you'll be gone. No record, no trace, no memory. The black cover pulsed under my grip, humming with possibility. Behind me, Miguel shouted, "Erase him." Not us. But deep down, I knew the archivist wasn't lying. The void wouldn't choose. It would consume. My hands trembled. Folder half open. Do I rip it wide or slam it shut? The folder trembled in my hands, humming like a live wire. Cold radiated from it, seeping into my bones. Inside, the edges of unseen papers pulsed with ultraviolet light. The same word etched over and over. Void. Miguel staggered toward me. His arm blackened with crawling script that tried to consume him. "Do it," he yelled. Teeth bared. "If it erases him, it's worth it." The archivist's face, so ordinary, so human, tightened with something I had never seen in him before. Not calm, not confidence. Fear. "You'll destroy yourselves too," he said, voice cracking for the first time. "You'll be forgotten, not closed. Not filed, nothing. That is worse than death." The room vibrated. Drawers slammed. Brass plates sparking as names erased and reappeared like stuttering film reels. The chorus screamed again. Sign, sign, sign. But under it all, a deeper whisper echoed, rising from the black folder itself. Unsign. I locked eyes with Miguel. His expression was raw, desperate, yet steady. If the only way to beat him is to not exist in his system, he nodded at the folder. Then we unsign. The archivist lunged, hands outstretched. Faster than thought, I wrenched the folder open. The annex exploded with light black, white, ultraviolet. All at once, the air tore. Pages dissolved mid-air, crumbling to ash. Brass plates melted from the cabinets, names dripping away like wax. The archivist shrieked. His voice multiplied into hundreds, a choir of fractured tones. His body bent and warped, flattening into paper, then crumpling, then unraveling into shreds of text that scattered on a phantom wind. Miguel screamed too, clutching his arm as the crawling script dissolved into nothing. His skin peeled clean, blank as new paper. In me, I felt myself hollowing, memories bleeding out, my mother's voice, my first day at the college, the moment I found that first Polaroid, all of it slipping into the void like spilled ink. But I held the folder wide, forcing it open as the darkness inside roared, swallowing everything. The archivist's last fragments flared, 1,000 shredded pages shrieking into dust. His whisper lingered one final time. Every file deserves a copy. Then silence. The light died. I was on my knees, the folder limp in my hands, empty now, its cover crumbling into flakes. The annex was still. No drawers, no whispers, just damp walls and dust. Miguel knelt beside me, pale but breathing. His eyes searched mine. We did it. He's gone. I nodded slowly. Relief washed through me. But it was hollow, because when I looked at the scattered remains of the black folder, I saw a single scrap of paper that hadn't dissolved. On it, faint but legible, was my own name, and beneath it, one word etched in block letters: duplicate. The scrap of paper trembled in the stale air, edges curling as if resisting the world around it. My name gleamed on the surface, ink so black it seemed deeper than the page itself. Beneath it, that single word: duplicate. Miguel's face drained of color. "He's gone," he whispered, though it sounded more like he was trying to convince himself. We erased him. I reached for the scrap. It burned cold against my fingertips. Like ice that wanted to burrow deeper, the letters didn't smudge. Didn't fade. They shone. "Then why is this still here?" I murmured. The room around us, the ruined annex basement, shifted faintly. I felt it in my bones, like a building sighing under its own weight. The walls flexed, plaster groaning. For an instant, the brass gleam of filing cabinets shimmered through the concrete like something half erased and trying to print itself back. Miguel grabbed my wrist. "Don't read it again. Don't acknowledge it." But the word was already lodged in my head. Duplicate. A copy. Another file. I dropped the paper. It floated gently to the floor instead of falling, and when it landed, it split. One scrap became two. Both bore my name. Both bore the same word. Duplicate. We staggered back. The scraps pulsed. Multiplied. Splitting again. Again. Like cells dividing. Soon the floor was littered with dozens. Then hunmas. My name stamped over and over. Duplicates of me spilling across the tiles. Miguel stomped one under his boot. It smeared into dust, but two more split in its place, fluttering up the walls, the ceiling, until the whole room swarmed with paper carrying my name. "No," I gasped. "No. This isn't him. This is me." Miguel's voice cracked. "The void didn't destroy him. It used you. It made you the archive." The scraps swirled into a cyclone, pages whispering against each other, chanting a new word now in perfect unison. Record, record, record. I clamped my hands over my ears, but it was inside me now. Not sound, but thought. The more I tried to deny it, the louder it became. Every duplicate stamped itself deeper into me, every page insisting I was nothing more than an entry. The storm funneled upward, gathering into a single column of pages. They twisted, condensed, shaping themselves into a figure. My figure. I stared at my own face. Assembled from hundreds of scraps, my copy blinked, smiled faintly, an archivist's smile on my mouth. It spoke in a voice layered with whispers. "The author needs successors." My duplicate extended its hand. Behind me, Miguel hissed through his teeth, "Don't touch it." But already, my skin was crawling with letters, my name repeating down my arms like a barcode. I wasn't sure if I had a choice anymore. The duplicate's hand hovered in front of me, its fingers nothing but paper strips woven tight, edges fluttering in the stale annex air. My face, its face, smiled faintly. Ordinary, yet terrible. Like the archivist's had been. "You're already part of the record," it whispered. Though its mouth didn't move, the words spilled from the rustling scraps that made it. "Touch me, and we'll be complete." Miguel shoved me back, planting himself between us. His voice was raw. "She's not yours. She's not a file." The duplicate tilted its head, eyes made of my name layered over and over. "She's not yours either. She's ours." The cyclone of papers still whipped around the room, my name stamped across every scrap. Duplicates birthing duplicates. Each one hissed the same word as it spun. Record, record, record. I clutched my arms, trying to rub the crawling text off my skin. But the letters only sank deeper, burning into veins. "Miguel, I can feel it. I think I am signing." "No," he snapped, gripping my shoulders. His hands were solid, warm. "Look at me. You're not a signature. You're not a file. You're you." The duplicate laughed a dry rustling sound like pages tearing. He said the same once. Now he's archived. Miguel flinched, his jaw tight. Don't listen. It's a copy. It's not you. But the words had hooked me. I remembered the cabinets, the brass plates engraving names, the black folder. Every file deserves a copy. That had been the archivist's last whisper before the void swallowed him. This was the copy of me, and it wanted me to finish the work. The duplicate stepped closer. I stumbled back, but my foot slid on loose scraps. They clung to my shoes, my ankles, whispering sign with every shift of weight. Miguel grabbed the UV marker again, raising it like a blade. If it's just paper, then we burn it out. He lunged, slashing the glowing tip across the duplicate's chest. For an instant, the letters that formed its body sizzled, whole sections of it collapsing into ash. But then the scraps around us swarmed back in, filling the gaps, rebuilding it. Now there were two hands extended toward me. One of us. The voices layered, my own voice echoing back at me from 1,000 scraps. Miguel turned to me, desperate. We have one chance. If you take its hand, you'll be written. But if you completely refuse, maybe it collapses, because it can't exist without your acknowledgement. The duplicate's smile widened. She already looked. And in my palm, faint as breath, I felt the weight of the red pushpin again. The pushpin sat in my palm, cold and bright, its plastic head glowing faintly red. I hadn't picked it up, hadn't even wanted to, but there it was, as if the duplicate had written it back into my hand. The sight of it made the cyclone of scraps hiss louder, voices overlapping in a static storm. Sign, fasten, complete. Miguel's eyes locked on mine. Don't let it anchor you. That's all it needs, the pin in the lock. The acknowledgement. But my duplicate leaned closer, its paper lips curling into that patient archivist smile. You already hold it. That's consent. The words hit harder than they should have, like a stamp on my chest. My fingers trembled. The pushpin's tip bit deeper into my skin, and I felt it not sharp, but pulling, like a magnet toward the duplicate's waiting hand. I can't drop it, I whispered, panicked. You can... Miguel growled. He raised the UV marker again. But the duplicate only shifted, its body rippling with fresh scraps. It didn't flinch this time. It was stronger, steadier, like it was no longer just paper, but something halfway between record and flesh. He voided himself, it murmured, voice layered with mine. I won't make his mistake. The scraps around us slowed, forming a wide circle on the floor. Every page bore the same image now, me, holding the pushpin, arms stretched forward, 1,000 duplicates of the moment I was about to give in. Miguel grabbed my wrist. Listen to me, if you stick that pin in, you're gone, not just filed, replaced. But what if refusing means nothing? My voice cracked. What if the copy already is me? The duplicate extended its other hand now, palms open. Patient. This is the final draft. We don't need to fight anymore. Just fasten, file, rest. The red pushpin pulsed in my palm, syncing with my heartbeat. Miguel's grip tightened. His voice was low, urgent. Then we void it together, before it files you, before it files me. I stared at the marker in his hand, then at the glowing pin in mine, and at the duplicate smiling, waiting, already half me. The cyclone of scraps whispered louder, louder, until it was a roar. File closed, file closed, file closed. I raised the pushpin high, and for a moment, I didn't know if I was about to stab the duplicate or myself. The pushpin blazed in my grip, red light bleeding across the walls like a warning flare. The duplicate's paper hand trembled. Waiting, Miguel's breath was hot at my ear. Now, void it. I slammed the pin downward, but not into myself, into the duplicate's chest. The point sank through its paper ribs with a sickening tack. For an instant, the cyclone of scraps froze midair, every page shivering as if in shock. Then the duplicate screamed, not in pain, but in 1,000 rustling whispers tearing at once. File error. The pin glowed brighter, the plastic head liquefying, fusing into the duplicate's body. Flames of ultraviolet ink spread outward from the puncture, crawling through its frame, unraveling the words that formed its face. It reached for me even as its body shredded. Fingers of paper brushed my arm, and for a split second, I saw what it saw. A future where I had taken its hand, my life filed neatly, every moment time-stamped, every breath documented. Miguel beside me, stamped and sealed too, a perfect archive. Eternal. Then the vision cracked, burned away. The duplicate collapsed in a storm of ash and scraps. The cyclone shattered. Pages raining lifeless to the floor. The whispers died. Only silence remained. I fell to my knees, chest heaving. Pushpin gone. My palm was scorched, red welt spiraling where I'd gripped it. Miguel dropped beside me, grabbing my shoulders. His voice shook. "You did it. It's over." I wanted to believe him, but as the dust settled, I saw that not all the scraps had turned to ash. One page lay intact on the floor. I picked it up, trembling. It wasn't my name this time. It wasn't Miguel's. It was a certificate. Insured, the archivist. Effective date, now. Expiration, none. At the bottom, in sharp black type, a line already filled. Signature, my name. Miguel's eyes widened. "You didn't sign." But I had, with the pushpin, with that single, final tack. The archivist wasn't gone. I had just insured him. The certificate trembled in my hands, edges glowing faintly, as though heat radiated from the signature line itself. My name stared back at me in perfect black ink, my handwriting, though I had never written it. Miguel's voice cracked, furious. "No, no. That's a trick. You didn't sign anything." But my stomach sank. I felt it like a weight had been pulled from me, siphoned into that paper, a consent I hadn't meant to give. The words across the page pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. Insured, the archivist. Expiration, none. The dust of the duplicate swirled faintly, reassembling in the air, but not into my shape this time, into his, the ordinary face. The forgettable jaw, the calm eyes, rebuilding himself from the very policy I'd just acknowledged. Miguel staggered back. "No, no. Veiro said you." The archivist's voice slid across the basement like cold ink across vellum. Records can be voided. Copies can be lost. But insurance? He touched the certificate lightly, reverently. Insurance ensures continuity. The walls of the annex flexed outward. New drawers groaned into being. Fresh brass plates gleaming. Some bore Miguel's name, some bore mine, but others, hundreds, were blank, waiting for whoever wandered close enough to notice. I clutched the certificate tighter, desperation rising like bile. If my signature insured you, then my hand can void you. The archivist tilted his head, that faint, patient smile returning. "Try." I tore at the paper with both hands, but it didn't rip. The fibers held, tougher than steel. My name across the bottom didn't blur it, only burned brighter. Miguel yanked the UV marker and slashed it across the surface. For a moment, the glow spread like a crack in glass. The word void bloomed across the top. But then the paper healed. The voided mark erased itself letter by letter. And at the bottom, beneath my name, new letters appeared. Black and final. Witnessed, Miguel Alvarez. Miguel's face drained of blood. No. The archivist's smile widened by a fraction. 2 signatures, binding. The air thickened. Drawers slid open. Eager, Polaroids spilled out. Already developing with our faces. Miguel's voice broke into a shout. Don't let them take you. But the truth sank like a stone in my chest. It was too late. The policy was written. The archivist was eternal. And we, Miguel and I, were the premium. The certificate pulsed between my fingers, my name burning at the bottom. Miguel's freshly etched beneath it. The archivist loomed. Assembled once more from dust and ink. His presence so calm, it curdled my stomach. Miguel gritted his teeth. The UV marker trembling in his grip. We're not paying your premium. The archivist tilted his head. Patient as always. You already are, with every breath you take. With every memory you cling to. Your lives are the interest. Your deaths are the payoff. The drawers rattled. Polaroids slid out in waves, fluttering like moths. Each one carried a variation of us, asleep. Laughing, bleeding, screaming, too many versions, too many duplicates. My throat closed. Then how do we stop him? Miguel's eyes were dark but steady, not by voiding him, by voiding ourselves. The words chilled me. My mind flashed back to the void folder. To the awful truth the archivist had admitted absence cannot be filed. The archivist's smile faltered for the first time. You wouldn't. Miguel grabbed my shoulders, eyes boring into mine. If we erase ourselves, we erase his policy. No insured. No record. No archivist. I shook my head, tears burning hot. But that means, I know, he said softly, but it's the only way to end it. The certificate fluttered in my grip. Hungry for permanence, the archivist's whisper clawed at my ears. Sign, sign, file, file. And I knew Miguel was right. The annex shuddered. Walls splitting. Drawers vomiting out records that weren't just ours anymore. Strangers' faces flashed in Polaroids men. Women. Children. Thousands of them. All archived. All insured by some unwilling hand. We weren't the first, but maybe we could be the last. Miguel pressed the UV marker into my palm. His hand steady despite the terror etched in his face. Together, you and me, we void ourselves. The archivist took a step forward. Voice sharp for the first time. If you do this, there will be nothing. No memory. No trace. No witness. You will not even know you ever existed. A quiet terror gripped me. What if he was right? What if this wasn't sacrifice, but annihilation? But Miguel squeezed my hand, grounding me. Then we go together. The certificate between us writhed. Letters shifting. Our names glowed, binding us to the archivist's policy. But as the UV marker touched the surface, I felt the word burning in my chest, ready to spill out. Void. We scrawled it together. Markers searing across the parchment. The letters flared. Brighter than the Polaroids. Brighter than the pushpin had ever glowed. The archivist screamed a sound of tearing paper and shattering glass. His form crumpled, fragments of text unraveling into static dust. The annex shook violently. Cabinets collapsed inward. Brass plates liquefying. Polaroids ignited midair. Faces burning to white. The storm of voices shrieked their final chorus. File error. File error. The word void consumed the certificate, spreading like wildfire across every drawer, every file, every duplicate, and then silence. The annex was gone. The walls, the cabinets, even the floor beneath us, everything dissolved into blank whiteness. Miguel stood before me, pale and exhausted, but smiling faintly. We did it. I tried to answer, but my voice caught. My name was unraveling in my mind. Letters slipping away like sand, the memories of my life, my mother's voice. The smell of rain on the first night, this all began faded. Piece by piece. Miguel's outline shimmered, already translucent. Stay with me. If we go together. I reached for him. Our hands clasped one last time, and the whiteness swallowed everything. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't me anymore. I was in a library, rows of shelves stretched in every direction, but not with books, just blank spines. The air was heavy with silence, the kind that pressed against your skin. Miguel stood beside me, or something shaped like him. Neither of us had names now. Neither of us had histories. Yet we were still together. A single black folder lay on a pedestal before us. Its brass plate read, Void. We understood, wordlessly. This was the archive's scar, the flaw that had let us win. We weren't insured. We weren't filed. We were absence. And absence couldn't be touched. Time, if time even existed here, moved differently. Sometimes I felt the echo of the world we'd left behind, the hum of fluorescent lights, the weight of a pen in my hand, but it was faint, fading. The archivist never returned. His whisper never reached us here. Miguel would smile. Sometimes, though his face was growing less distinct. We gave them a chance. He'd say, others might survive now, others might not notice. But I wondered, had we erased only him? Or had we erased ourselves from every life we'd touched? Did my mother remember me? Did anyone at all? The thought hurt, but even that pain began to fade. We were becoming the folder, the scar, the flaw. And then darkness. The whiteness collapsed, folding inward like paper burning from the edges. I reached for Miguel. But my hand passed through his outline scattered into dust. I screamed, but no sound came. The last thing I saw before everything collapsed was the black folder snapping shut, and the brass plate engraving itself with new words. File closed. There was nothing. But then, faintly, a sound. A pen scratching across paper. He blinked. I was sitting in a classroom, a notebook open before me, the page blank. A red pushpin rested on the desk. Plastic head gleaming. My hand moved on its own, writing the first line. Not my name, but his. The archivist. The classroom dissolved. The annex returned. Cabinets tall and endless. Brass plates gleaming. And me standing where he once stood, calm, ordinary, forgettable, but not forgotten. The pushpin glowed faintly in my hand. Every archive needs a successor. I turned as the first Polaroid slid from a drawer. It developed quickly. Colors bleeding into place. A face I didn't recognize stared back. Fear in their eyes. A timestamp burned into the corner. The whisper rose again. Soft. Eager. Sign. 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 And I smiled. Because I understood now. The archivist was gone. but the archive was eternal, and it had written me